Thank you. Good morning. I don't prepare so much about the visual, so maybe I will also just read what I wrote here. Could be a little bit boring, so but well, music and technology has always exist side by side. In archaeological site date from the Paleolithic era over the 40,000 years ago, rudimentary form of flute can be found. Music, which is among man's first cultural expression, appeared before agriculture or writing and is present in all societies on the planet in different formats and social function. To follow a religious ritual or simply to break a lonely worker silence. We will recall in a very simplified way some of the recording technologies developed in the last 120 years and how they have influenced the creation of new musical forms. We will also see how the most recent advances have modified creative possibilities and how industry mass-produced music affect a diversity. The way of human experience music started to change after the radio to the record were invented, since they made it possible distribute when listened to pre-recorded sounds. I have a little illustration about this. When I was a child, I got a present from my father, a small radio transistor, because that was very newly available in the market at the time. So I was very happy. I can listen to music everywhere, in the garden, somewhere on the way to the school, using the radio transistor. But what was excite me is because to find the right tuning, to find the radio station on that radio transistor at the time, it's quite difficult. And it's only two bands available, shortwave and microwaves. So there is a lot of frequency interference when we try to search the radio station. But that is what attracts me most. Because when I'm on bed, before the radio transistor exists, we have always to go to the living room to listen to the radio, to listen to the music. But since the radio transistor exists, I can listen to the music, to the radio on bed at night. So what excites me when I try to find the right radio station, there are a lot of frequency interference. And sometimes it creates a very strange sounds. I was wondering, is it something else? Or is it other living form in other planets? Or is it a communication? So I was just trying to listen to it. Almost every night, in the middle of the night, I'm listening, not listening to music on the radio, but listening to those frequency interference. I was very much interested on it, but when I told some of my friends, they were laughing. "You're crazy. You're supposed to listen to the music on the radio, not those weird sounds." But it was attract me a lot, so that is why almost every night alone in my bed, I'm listening to this kind of sounds. So I think this is also the trigger what made me interested in electronic music. Because I was so amazed. I was always thinking when I listen, I try to understand what is it? Is it a communication? Is it some a UFO communication or some other people who live in another planet try to communicate with us? but then I think it stays for so long in my mind, so it will be very easy very interest me to the electronic music. By the end of the 19th centuries, people had access to some rudimentary audio recording technologies. One of the most popular pieces equipped this was a Thomas Edison phonograph, and it's developed further and further, and it's soon songs start getting included on this media, but not without many technical difficulties. The acoustic cone had poor sensitivity, pick up only the loudest sounds. To balance the volume of the different instruments, it was necessary during the recording session to place them around the cone according to how loud they were. The louder the instrument, the further they were. To change the importance of the instrument during the recording, the musicians were placed on moving platform while playing. When it was time for a trumpet solo, the singer had to get out of the way and let the horn come closer in a complicated choreography. Some devices initially sold to the public were more than mere record players. They could scratch new cylinders, enabling homemade recording. However, manufacturers soon realized that it would be a lot more lucrative if users could solely listen to what they bought from them. That resulted in a strategy directed to promote music consumption through mass-produced device. At the beginning of the following century, a new generation of invention based on electric power changed the access to music again. The development of microphone technology and the discovery of the electromagnetic waves made radio popular as a music and new broadcasting system in the 1920s. Radio could be listened to by anyone who had a receiver at home, and interestingly enough, it was still based on the real-time musical performance inside the broadcasting radio studio. The sound quality of live transmission was at the time far superior to that achieved by wax and shellac recording equipment, which created a whole generation of radio musicians. When magnetic tape recorder was released in 1948, broadcasting radio started to use this equipment, expanding its broadcasting possibilities. The live musician constant presence was no longer necessary, and the recording studio was born. Still, in 1948, vinyl hits the market. Immediately, it is adopted by the consumer as their preferred medium for sound reproduction. Innumerable size and speed of vinyl records were marked, changing, evolving along technology and commercial interests. The first record were 7-inch. This should be played at 78 RPM. There are three different main speeds, and when I was a child also I never play on the intended speed, so I always played it back on the different speed, and it's very attracting me actually. People soon became accustomed to the idea of acquiring and listening to music on record. They voraciously started buying this new product. The recording and distribution process, however, lay in the hand of new kind of company that's structuring the musical industry, controlled by production and consumption cycles during the second half of the 20th century. It's a record company. The recording studios were important tools of this new industry. They were acoustically treated places where, in a complex and costly process, experts would place microphones in front of the musician. The audio pickup fed several pieces of equipment, such as preamplifier, compressor, equalizer, and so on, and the recording machine. During approximately 4 decades, the only way to record music professionally was to use one of these space, playing in a large sum of money. Additionally, the whole procedure was surrounded by secret. Each studio has unique method and equipment, creating sounds with their own personality. The producer ingeniousness in overcoming technical limitation and solving problems that appeared in its project resulted in the new technique that expanded to the horizon of recorded music and instigated other producers to search for even better solution. During the mixing of this adjustment are done in its channel, so the instrument recorded separately may sound cohesively. When played together, the sounds are normally mixed for stereo with 2 channels, left and right, and this is the common format for CD, vinyl records, music, digital files, and so on. There is more to studio than just acoustic treatment, recording machine, and soundboard. Each kind of audio processing is made by a specific piece of equipment, the size varying from the remote control to a refrigerator. The main difference between recording studio used to be the equipment they had. Having a lot of equalizer and compressor meant having more mixing possibility and higher costs as well. Ultimately, the use more refined production tools was restricted to those who had access to professional studios, and only those who already controlled the market were able to accomplish greater musical project. So the new technology also generate new composition method. Electroacoustic music, for example, emerged precisely from the use of equipment such as recording tape and electronic effect on conventional instruments. This is like what I illustrate in the beginning, that because of the recording equipment, the tape music, and so creatively, some people are very creatively use this equipment not only to record and reproduce the music, but also experimenting on how to use the sound as music materials. The capitalist world has been consuming a mixed global and local hits since 1950. At the end of the 1970s, however, the industry concerned by the drop of vinyl record sales had to reinvent itself. One of the main factors that saved record companies at that time was another technological innovation. Up until 1982, storing and reproducing sound was essentially made in an analogical manner. By physical printing audio through electromagnetic and mechanical means, in that year, a new technology, the compact disc or CD, digital format, multiplies industry profits due to decreasing reproduction costs and booming market for pop music. Not only does the listener accept to pay more than twice as much for the new kind of media, but he ends up reacquiring his favorite albums in digital disc version as well. A little before CD was released, recording and manipulating audio was a little still also essential analogic. Magnetic tape, valve and transistor, auxiliary center information. During the 1980s and 1990s, the digital format multiplies industry profit due to decreasing reproduction costs and booming market for pop music. A little before the CD was released, recording and manipulating audio was still also essentially analogic, magnetic tape valve transistor. Since the end of 1970s, however, digital equipment get increasingly more space in the studio. Processor, board, and recording machines start to be converted to the new technology. In the analogic studio, the microphone converts the pickup sound into the electric wave, which run along wires and equipment. It is altered and manipulated by the soundboard, processor, and finally recorded into a magnetic tape. In the digital world, around it's represented by a sequence of numbers that describe the sound wave behavior. The audio processors are made from algorithms that operate mathematically to modify the sound. The digital effect emerged with the first synthesizer of the same kind, sampler, compressor, and delay units start being used in the studio as technological novelties. Rooms used only to reproduce reverberation in recording can be replaced by a small device that simulates their sound. In place of fragile valve and circuit, to alter the equalization of the channel, a chip program for such function is used. With the advance of these devices, studios slowly become homogenized and lose their capacity to differentiate themselves from the competitor equipment-wise. More and more powerful computers start to play an increasingly active role in the recording process. In 1982, recently, the release of IBM PC XT had capacity to perform 20 mathematics operations per second. 30 years later, a modern personal processor operates over 1,000 times faster. This speed makes it possible to use complex algorithms that bring digital effects ever closer to analogic ones. With electronic copies of some famous classical equipment, formerly accessible only to big studios, while the use of physical piece of equipment is limited to a certain number of channels. Its digital recreation can be used simultaneously in indefinite number of time for fraction of the original price and without generating maintenance costs in rare valve or overheated transistor. Even typical hissing and noise can be simulated by computer and turned off anytime, something impossible with the original equipment. Support technology in the studio were also adapted. The soundboard's central piece of an analogic configuration was an extremely expensive, complex item, through which all channels went and were manipulated by tones and controls. Electrically managing the sound coming from a directed to the magnetic tape. In the digital studio, the computer is the main tool, and the soundboard becomes a mere controller with its knob and slider, simply sending digital instruction to the computer. The soundboard can become a smaller and even be considered obsolete, being replaced by a mouse and a keyboard shortcut. The equipment that used to be almost inaccessible, it's becoming affordable to even non-professional musicians. Soundboard and magnetic tape can all replaced by a single personal computer. Microphone has dropped in price. Today, a big studio has become dispensable in some situations, and it is possible to record entire pieces of music with just a notebook. Additionally, manipulating digital audio is extremely easy. To put together two recordings in magnetic tape, it was necessary to find the slice of tape that one wanted to use and then physically cut and glue the piece. Now, with a computer program, one can simply click and drag the digital audio and paste it on a new section without even destroying the original materials. Besides, there is no physical degradation of the recorded material, which occurs each time a magnetic tape or vinyl record is used. Inversion, synchronization, all is done much faster than it was with the old method. Computer programs designed to create, record, edit, and mix music are becoming increasingly more efficient and able to replace physical equipment, and today most studios are using the computer as their main tools. The same nostalgia that made consumers go back and buy vinyl record in the 21st century also creates a situation in which equipment built before World War II survive within the most traditional studios, and all still some controversy about this today. Is made digital even through using analog equipment, and some point in the process, only a few specific artistic experiments managed to carry out analogic project from beginning to end. Other more daring projects even experiment with wax cylinder. To this point that because sound processing and sound manipulating, it's become almost always possible. So some musicians just use it to make their work easier. There's a copy, so nothing changed in their music, but the work is become very much easier. But some other are using, like on the tape recorder, some are creatively using the equipment as a new tools to produce the music, not only to produce the same music with the record and reproducing. Because of this possibility of manipulating, and even manipulating the sound can be also do it in real time. So I will show you one of the examples that I perform a music with one singer, and the the sound material of the whole music is from the voice of the singer itself, picked up by the microphone, and this sound from the singer is processed in the computer in various ways and play it back in different manipulation, and it's give a feedback also to the singer that the music will become very rich in sound. I will play a little bit about this. So all the material of the sound is coming from the processed voice from the singer. Okay, I think that's it about how the possibility to process a sound in real time. It's amazingly can be do it now, but information technology plays as an essential role in updating studio technology as well as music distribution and dissemination. The evolution of the studio also generates new tools of creation facilitator. For a lonely composer working on a piece of music with only one musical instrument is often insufficient. The computer can be very useful in the composition process. Today, technology can provide rhythmic and harmonic accompaniment in a real time. Virtually, musician almost. Instruments such as bass, drums, and keyboard are available. For beyond providing timbres, this program de facto add factors to the composition, collaborating with the arrangement in a semi-automatic manner. The computer equipped with ready-to-use sounds, open space for the composer creation. Nowadays, a composition student, are almost has a distance in the real instrument. Some of my students compose a piece on the notation software and using the sample sound on the software itself, like for violin, they have already, so during the writing the composition, they can already listen to the sounds, what it's like. But some of my students, when the music played by the real instrument, they were surprised why it's so different. It's so different from what I heard in the computer said. So, of course, this is also a danger of the composing with the new technology, new software, because something we can hear on the computer, it's completely different from the real life. And it is also important to note, however, that such freedom is limited by the equipment used. A piano can only play a Western 12-note scale per octave, and a virtual drum player can only play what has been previously programmed. Analogic tools allow some degree of customization, however, it's limited. It is possible to use a piano as a percussion instrument and convert into a reverberation unit, for example. However, it is more complex to modify a software, so it plays something that was not included in initial configuration. A software that suggests harmonies based on the user melody cannot go beyond the factory parameters. New technology can also be used in a very effective way, becoming an important source of artistic innovation. New interfaces also create other interaction possibilities. Tablets such as the iPad allow for a series of different applications that facilitate music creation in a totally new way. Far removed from the studio original logic. Presented almost as an entertainment, they can suggest chord, musically accompanying. The user can create entire composition by a few touches on the screen, as well as using cameras and gyroscope as sound generator. More than 3 decades after using tape recorder to distort. Some creative minds use computer and as creation tools for a new musical interface. Today, there are development platforms such as Max and Arduino, which permit the creation of unprecedented effect, instrument, and sonorities. It is possible, for example, to use humidity sensors and online databanks to control virtual synthesizer parameters. the limitation finally go from the software creators hand into the composers, and also to the listener, thanks to software program that allow complex interaction between the consumer and creative work. The use of the internet and the Wi-Fi connection also very much possible this day, and it's quite safe. I have a few examples. Another examples that I was collaborating with the dancers and using the sound from the what is happened on the stage, but will be sorry because the audio recording is not so good because I use multi-point loudspeaker, so the sound can move, but on the recording we cannot hear the movement of the sound. But I just saw a little bit as a example. So this is the whole performance. I'm not going to play it all because it's almost 1 hour. So I put some device on the wok, and it transmits the frequencies to the receiver, and the sound from those wok, not all the woks, but 2 woks has a transmitter. And it's processed on the computer at real time. But we cannot really hear the sound because the speaker was installed on the roof, 8 speakers on the roof.
ومن أبرز المواقع التي تدور فيها الاشتباكات الآن
So this high frequency sound is turning around. So another example, it's I collaborating with a painter also, and they paint. The painting is done by the dancers, and I put some sensor like a light and color sensor on the canvas, and this creates some sound also to the computer. So it's gone like that. Well, there are quite a few more examples, but what I would like also, I was thinking of, I would like also some opinion from everybody that is about the technology, because there is a very ancient instrument, musical instrument in Java, which is still played in a deep village. But they now sell the instrument together, not only the instrument, but it's always together with the cone loudspeaker, because the instrument is very low. So they put some device like amplification through the cable to the cone loudspeaker, and they always use only cone loudspeaker. They don't want to use other loudspeaker, because they said the sound is different. It has to be used the cone loudspeaker, like they always hear on the mosque for the call of prayer and something. And they change also the string. It's not a normal string. Originally it was a rattan, but now they use the motorcycle cables. So if we see the wire, the string, it's still a little bit trace of the spiral. And they believe that this has to be like that. And they don't want to change to any other device. They said has to use the motorcycle wire. Where is it? If you can see the string, it's not a straight line, it's curly. And also the sitar string is the same material they use. Okay, so I just wonder, is it positive development or is it negative? Because they think that the instrument is always now integrated with the cone loudspeaker. It's not only the instrument itself. So maybe as a closing, that I would like to state that current technologies are extremely welcome, for they open the way to new possibilities, new possible influences, allow dissemination of the artist's works, and aid musical production, providing composition, recording, and mixing support. However, some measure of caution is necessary so that the tools available today do not become collective limitation or are reducing the horizon of creativity and consequently of musical diversity. Thank you. Maybe there will be some comment or question.
You know, it's always nice to see when people have thought things through, isn't it? And you know, yours leads into my next one so well. But this point you're making about this instrument, which was beautiful, actually. I've not heard that before. Mm-hmm. Such a fabulous sound. Yeah. I'm kind of thinking that what we're searching for with musical technology is the sound. So reversing the idea that we make sounds because they're possible, and that actually we use the technology to find the sound we already wanted to find, which fits nicely with your idea of when you were a child listening to the interference, because the sound is there, is in a way kind of there already, and you're thinking, oh, this is something that really moves me. And why is that? You know, and okay, a kid now couldn't do that because there isn't a transistor. And if you had a transistor radio, what would you hear? You might get some background radiation from the universe, but those stations, certainly in my country, they don't broadcast anymore. So those waves aren't there, you know. And it's just really interesting, this idea of why do we push technologies to a particular place. So I'm going to suggest that it's actually the sound pre-exists the technology, and we're using the technology to rediscover it or to find it. So thanks for your presentation.
Oh, thank you for the comments. Any other comments or maybe? Yeah, Alex?
What is the name of this last instrument?
It's called Tarawangsa.
Can you say it slowly, please?
Tarawangsa. So TARAWANGSA.
And where does it come from? Which part?
It's from the southwest Java.
Sunda?
Sunda.
West Java.
Yeah, West Java.
And what does the original one look like?
It's the shape of the instrument is still the same. The only difference is that they now connected to the loudspeaker. So that's the only change. And of course the string, because originally it was made by the rattan. They made a rope like a rattan, and they changed it to the material from the motorcycles brake cables.
Yeah, wires. Yeah.
Yeah, wire. Yeah.
Well, I have two thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
First, I think it's a great sound. I agree. And well, maybe three things. The idea that it has using a traditional instrument and does something so different might be considered either a bad thing from some people looking at it, or it's avant-garde.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that's also very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I'm thinking about, this is very much maybe similar to two things, instruments. One is the electric guitar. So electric guitar started with a guitar that has, the strings are not made from metal.
Yeah.
But eventually you know what it is now. That instrument cannot be played without the amplification.
No.
Okay, so that's something interesting direction for this instrument. I think they should keep going, because you don't know what's going to happen, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then also the other thing I'm reminded of is if we think of the piano, before the piano was also different. There was a, I don't know, what was a clavichord or a harpsichord or something. And so there was a lot of evolution, and it becomes this thing called the pianoforte. So I think this instrument should keep going.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, the interesting thing of this instrument that they just choose the specific type of the loudspeaker. They don't want to use like this speaker. They will ignore it. They just want to have the cone loudspeaker, so they know what sound they want to have it.
It looks cool as well.
Yeah, it looks cool.
I think that's also.
What did you just say about the speakers, another aspect?
Mhm.
There's two thoughts that I come. One is that the players, they did not, maybe they accidentally discovered this speaker because maybe that's all they could afford.
Mhm.
Maybe it's cheaper to drive the sound. But once they found it, they said, this is my sound.
Yeah.
So that's also like Jimi Hendrix when he first used Marshall amps and put them up so big that it was like complete differently sound.
Yeah.
Or the Beatles have that one piece, was it Day Tripper, where the bass was distorted.
Yeah.
And so what the Beatles did was they ripped the speaker to get that sound. So it means they wanted the sound.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's why this instrument, they should keep developing.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you. So I think time is up, or no? Or still some? Oh, yeah. There's some, yeah.
Also, obviously, development doesn't mean that you can't play the old version anymore. For example, we have the modern harp, but we still also play the Baroque harp, which has made a huge comeback right now. And we also have an electric harp, which is the same as an electric guitar, so you can't play it without amp. It doesn't mean that I can't play both or even three or all 50 harps that exists. And I think diversity is a thing that we're going towards as a culture anyway, which is very welcome. And so we need to diversify further and not be afraid to make developments, but still keep on doing old things as well.
We can still play stones in caves.
Yes, I think this is the very good points that the development of the technology, it's make the diversity getting wider. People can choose whatever which sound they want to produce or to have. So this is one of the most, also the most advantage of the development of the technology. The sound itself getting wider, and the diversity of the instrument, sounds, and also the music getting wider. And of course, the cultural influences also getting wider, because we are connected to the whole world almost instantly right now. So I think that's a good point. Some people are afraid about the development of the technology, but we cannot avoid it anyway. We just have to live on it. So, yes.
Just sharing. Sometimes it's the traditional communities who are more open to the use of available technology. I remember a decade ago, or was it in the 90s? That's 2 decades ago. The Smithsonian featured Hawaiian music in their annual exhibition. And so they invited slack key guitarists. Of course, all slack key musicians now play with pickup guitars. But the organizers wouldn't allow them to do that because it's not traditional. So sometimes we are the ones who box, or objectify what we think is authentic.
Yes. Yes, thank you. So, thing.
Professor Otto Sidharta.